All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for More Than a Party podcast. I apologize for my delay in releasing it Friday instead of my usual Wednesday. And the reason why I wasn't able to get the video up um, last week is because I think I might have mentioned this on my Instagram page, but um, I actually got 2 warnings on my YouTube. And so I wasn't able to upload the one last week, and so I was just like, it's okay, no worries. And so I should be able to upload this week, and we are back again for part 2 with my mama, Kimberly and Neil. I had a lot of you reach out to me when I asked if you guys had any questions for her, and I wasn't able to see them in time. And last week we pretty much just dealt with just your early life and up until your 20s, and then the beginning of your salvation. And so there's so much more we could do. I mean, we could do part 3, part 4, part 5. I mean, you can go in detail about so many different aspects of your life and different dynamics of your life. But I just want to just maybe focus a little bit more on a couple different things. But I appreciate you coming back on, Mama.
No problem. My pleasure.
Yeah, we had a good time last week, and so
Yeah,
I
it was
hope
good.
I hope everyone enjoys this week's as well. So, but where we left off, you were talking about the police department, and if you, I would encourage you before. I mean, you could listen to this one, stand by itself, and not a big deal. But if you, I would encourage you go back and you can listen to part 1, and maybe part 2 will make a little bit more sense. But where you left off, you were talking about just your early life and working for the police department, and that was a big part of your life. You worked there
Yeah.
for 13 years,
Yep. 13
and they
years.
threw you a big going away party. So it
Yeah.
wasn't just like a, you know, stepping stone. It was like, this is what you thought might have been your career
Right.
for a long time. So we were talking and discussing with Shiggy, and she was like, "Man, Mom, you got to share some of your radical police stories." And I would love for you to maybe go a little bit into detail about some of your police years as a dispatcher. Even before maybe we start talking about your walk with Christ and your last 30 years. So we'll just refresh everyone. You got hired when as a dispatcher?
February 1982 or 84. I graduated high school in 82. And when I got hired, I had no clue that I would actually be working with the police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you got to remember, I was a hardcore druggie, partier, broke the law, been to jail a few times, pulled over for drugs, um, got into many fights. And so Santa Monica was a groovy place, but people knew each other back then. It wasn't like now where there's hundreds and thousands of people
Yeah.
walking the streets. It was, people knew. It was a smaller community. So when I got hired, a gal had I had left home basically when I was 16 years old, on and off. Sometimes I would go home, but for the most part, I was out of there. And when I got hired, what had happened was a woman had been working at the police department. She was a supervisor, and she said, I have an as needed position for you. I had no clue what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
As needed, what's that? And she said it would be at the police department. So I'm thinking city hall or maybe some administration thing. I didn't even ask any questions. So she tells me where to go. She had already arranged me to get hired. And I ended up on my first day in a squad room with like 25 policemen sitting there with my training officer going, what have I done?
Mm.
I was so scared. I was not wanting to be there. And I was on a ride along. I was going to go on a ride along that first night. And this policeman by the name of Eddie Opry, great guy. Anyway, he comes up and says, "Hey, you're riding with me." And I noticed on his clipboard was a wanted sheet with one of my friends on it.
Wow.
I was I
Yeah.
I was so scared. And but I didn't know him, so that was cool. I wasn't afraid in that way. But it was night shift, and I thought for sure I would just quit after, that night. And then as I'm riding along with him and he's teaching me about, the police department and all these different things, I thought, wow, this is kind of a cool job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a police dispatcher was. They were starting to implement 911. I didn't know anything. And he just encouraged me to stick around. And I was afraid to tell him anything about my past. And he asked some questions, but he wasn't doing it to be nosy. He was just trying to get to know me. He wasn't being an investigator, anything like that. And I thought, well, I'll stick around. And the lady, Sandy, who had hired me, she was cool people.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped me a lot. And I, I cannot stress how stressed my position was.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to
Constant.
know all the streets.
The
You send,
alleys.
the alleys. If you send
Yeah.
a policeman down the wrong lane, it's
Yeah.
life or death.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
legit. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. And you have sergeants yelling at you like this close,
Yeah.
telling you, hey, you almost killed. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm young.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen a lot, but it was dramatic, and I deserved to be yelled at. I made mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that as I was there longer and I got to know the codes better and all this stuff better, I did a better job. I started to think. They really pushed critical thinking. And I was able to, instead of go A to C, I had to think about A all the way to Z,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing and how I could affect not just the victims, but the policemen and other people that are there. And it, I had to really buck up and wear my big girl pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's a small knit community, and so when you get hired, you're a local girl on the first ride along, you see a wanted poster of your friend.
yeah.
But that wasn't the only time that you were hearing encounters of your friends or anything like
Oh
that.
yeah.
As far as the police were concerned, and we were discussing the other day. One of the times I've heard this story, and you've told it to us growing up, but one of your friends that you knew and another police officer knew um, was just completely out of his mind one night, and I believe his name was Danny.
No, his name. Okay, the policeman's name was Danny.
Danny, okay.
And the guy that was in question is Tony. He's passed away now, but I used to party with him and do a lot of drugs with him. And he went to prison for a while. And then what ended up happening, he got out. Of course, I never saw him. I didn't. I had no clue. But anyway, Danny went to pull him over, and he was on a bad trip. He had speedballed, heroin, and I forget what the other drug is, but he basically was so hyped on the drug and the adrenaline that he was hallucinating. And I personally thought, man, I hope demons, it sounded like demons were chasing him. That's not what Danny said, the police officer, but I'm listening to the story, and anyway, he had a massive heart attack.
Yeah.
But he kept going, and I can't remember all the details, but Danny had come down and told me that Tony had died, and he tried to save his life. And the main thing that I wanted to point out with that story is that was me.
Mm-hmm.
That guy was my friend.
Yeah, it could have been you.
Yeah, that was me. That was my life, That wasn't me at that point, but that was the people that I hung out with, it was just, there was such a reckless lifestyle. And Danny had come down and told me about it. And I could see he was visibly moved because it just, we went to the same school, and I can't recall if Danny went to school with him, but he knew about this guy, and he knew I knew him, and he came down to tell me that he died.
Mm.
And it just it was a lot. It
Yeah.
was a lot. And so, but one of the stories I want to tell, and and it's a cool one. I'm gonna probably tag a couple of the ladies that I work with in dispatch. But I had gotten saved. And one of the things, besides the story, but one of the things I did want to say, and I thought about today, when I had gotten saved, I had said, man, my whole life just changed. Nobody said stop drinking. Nobody told me to stop doing anything. Adam became my center. Jesus was my center, but Adam became my major priority. Everything changed for me. And I look back, grace of God, God started leading me in a direction of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had gotten saved, it was kind of crazy. I walk into the dispatch room, and it's probably 25 by 20, computer systems, computers everywhere, and it was the CAD system. And I just raised my hands up and said, "Guess what, peeps?" And they're like, all these ladies, and I think one of the police officers were in there, Alan Holmes, and they said, "You're pregnant." I said, "No, I got saved."
Hey. Yeah.
And they looked at me like, "Oh no, Kimmy's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She's lost it again." Because I was always in the forefront of just, you name it. and
Yeah.
and you know what? People weren't really that happy for me. And
Yeah, they're losing the crazy friend at the parties.
yeah, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, man, I'm different.
Yeah.
In just a day,
Yeah.
I knew I was different. It was such a miracle that happened to me. And God began to deal with me and encourage me and show me purpose, and immediately began to bring healing into my life. And I began to witness.
Yeah.
Nobody said, "Hey, you got to tell people about Jesus." It was just
Yeah.
in me
Yeah.
to talk about Jesus. And of course, my girlfriends, they were so good to me. They were very amicable,
Mm-hmm.
friendly about it. Um, but, I had a long ways to go.
Mm-hmm.
I was very zealous without knowledge. I didn't know the Bible, but I knew I got
Yeah.
saved.
Yeah. You knew you were different.
I knew I was different.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the stories that Shiggy wanted me to tell is when I was there, probably saved, probably 3 or 4 years, the Holy Spirit began to really deal with me in different areas. But I had been working part-time by this time, and I had gotten a recognition award in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, I you get voted, but I mean, probably barely anybody even voted for me. But I knew God
Yeah.
did something.
Yeah.
He honored me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. When I had answered a 911 call, and we had a lot of transients. There still are a lot of transients in Santa Monica. But there was a particular transient, and I can't recall her name. And she lived on the streets, but she always had like a lot of like sheets, like she wore a lot of garb, and she lived on the streets. She had mental issues, and anyway, so she would call 911 every once in a while, and I felt bad for her. So I would send out a police officer to check her status, and
Yeah.
that wasn't always the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But this particular time, she had called, and I recognized her voice, and I heard a faint, faint, faint sound of a baby.
Mm.
And I just, you just don't always know how to deal with that because it could be somebody just passing by, and I couldn't tell if the baby was crying. It was so faint. And so I had decided I was going to take the call, and I took the police officer to frequency 2, and we were communicating over the radio. And I said, you know what? Can you just check her status? I, I'm saying I, I believe I heard a baby,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure. And he's like, no problem. I'll do that.
Yeah.
It was one of my friends. His name was Eric, and he had went out, couldn't find her, and I gave him the location because 911 gave the payphones, and he couldn't find her, and he's like, Kimmy, are you sure? I was like, this is where she last was. I was like, yeah, and then on Pico Boulevard, she was going in and out of traffic, weaving in and out of traffic.
Mm.
And he's like, I found her. And it became a very intense thing. He called for backup code 3. This woman was, and it turned out she had been, sexually assaulted and had a baby
Wow.
like within a couple of days. And she was horribly affected, just I don't recall where she had the baby. Anyway, the baby was wrapped up at her tummy,
Mm-hmm.
okay, basically dying, okay. And the policeman was like, you know 10-3 code 3, I need a paramedic, the whole bit. And he came down, and so he recommended an accommodation because that baby would have died. And he came down and said, good work,
Yeah.
good work, good initiative,
Yeah.
intuition. And so that ended up being a cool story. And, sometimes I think, oh, I wonder how that little one is. But,
Yeah.
it's probably, 1991, 92. So make him about 30 years old. But, you lose track of the people and the
Yeah.
victims. But anyway, so that was a cool story.
Yeah. And I remember a couple of different ones, but we don't have to get into them. But how did your perspective change? Like, because you got hired before you were saved. How did it? And then you were still working there even after you got saved. How did your perspective change? Like about people, about maybe the police department, about different things like life and death. All these major issues. I mean, you're in the heart of L.A. You're dealing with this, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden your mind is clear now. You're seeing with a whole new, fresh set of eyes, a different perspective. You have Jesus now. You have the hope. Did your mindset change, or was it like, oh my gosh, like this is or did you always kind of have that realization, like this is serious stuff?
I think what had happened before I got saved, I was a partier.
Yeah.
I went from drugs to alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
even though the policeman didn't know that. I partied. But after I got saved, this job became very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was imperative that I do everything correctly.
Yeah.
And do my best to be as perfect as possible. And obviously I wasn't, but I my whole thinking changed where everybody was important. I wanted to be super thorough. People mattered.
Yeah.
I had more compassion on victims. I used to be super impatient. Then I became more patient.
Probably easy to get callous too.
Oh yeah, cynical.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go again. There's
Yeah.
another parking problem. It's like, really.
Yeah.
And so, no, I changed and I really cared. And I think, too, my friends that I worked with saw that as well. They saw that I cared, and they saw that I wanted to be a good mom. By that time, I had had Shiggy, Alexandria, for those of you who do not know.
Yeah.
And so, my friends were really supportive of my Christianity because they saw a difference. And
Yeah.
they knew that I was serious. I
Yeah.
wasn't giving up Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, and you said you're starting to have more kids. What?
Yeah.
Maybe for people that don't know, where did the name Shiggy come from?
Oh man, it's a silly
It's
story.
a silly story, but I get
Yeah.
people asking me.
Yeah, you know what? It's Billy was working with at I think a life insurance, and one of the it's so silly. We're rhymers. We like to rhyme. Pastor Rob rhymes, so
Yeah.
we rhyme. We're disciples, and so anyway, his name was Shigafusa, and I liked the way that sound, and we just Shiggy Shiggy Fusa, and then we had a break. We found out that um, then we changed it to Shigala. Found out that was a germ, and so then we just broke it down to Shiggy,
Yeah.
and it stuck.
And it stuck. She introduced herself as that. So, little side note for those wondering where the name Shiggy
It's
comes
just,
from.
yeah.
She
Bill
introduced
tells
herself.
it
She
better. Yeah.
tells them when she's working, all these different things like in employment. But yeah, her name's Alexandra. So you started to have more kids. How did that affect work? So you're saved, you're married, you're starting to have more kids. You are still working as a dispatcher in the LA Police Department,
With Santa Monica.
Santa
Police.
Monica Police Department. So
Now Santa Monica is not LA County. It's not.
Did you look it up?
Yes. I already knew that anyway. It's not. I
Mm,
promise.
I'm gonna have to double
We're
fact
our
check.
own police
Fact check.
department. We're our own police department.
Yeah.
We're not county. I promise.
Mm.
We would have to call, like, say we needed a helicopter. Yes. If we needed a helicopter, we had to call them and ask. We didn't call the sheriffs. I'm telling you the truth.
I'm gonna fact check this.
Okay.
No,
do it.
I'm just kidding. I believe you.
No.
So you're having more kids. You're still working in the police department. When are you thinking about quitting? When did that happen?
Well, I when I got saved, I really now you have to understand, before I was a Christian, I didn't even know I would live to be 20 years old. Okay. And then when I made it to 20, I had no clue what 30 would be like. So I had no vision for my life. So when I got saved, everything changed. I was excited about life. I was excited about my job. I was excited about the friends I had. It was different. I was probably too zealous at times, and I said things wrong. Not probably. I was too zealous. I said things incorrectly. I said things I didn't really mean. It's all I wanted was my friends to get it.
Yeah.
That I was really, really bad. And I didn't realize how really, really bad I was. And then I got saved. And God didn't say, "You're really, really bad." It was just somehow I knew I could change, and I had hope like I never experienced. So when I met Bill, and we fell in love, and then got married, and I had Adam, I was excited about being a family.
Yeah.
And then I thought, man, I want to have a baby. I love babies. And I had, Shiggy, and then I wanted another baby not long after that. And then of course I had you just a couple years after that. I think everybody was kind of tripping because my desires completely changed.
Yeah. Well, and you were being shaped too, I'm sure, by the Scribners who had a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And Pastor Rob, who has had and Miss Jen, who had a tremendous influence on your life alone.
Yeah.
And so the desire to have more kids, I'm sure, was just like, well, they're doing it, like I want to do it too. Like, I love babies. They're having babies. I want babies.
Well, too, what was really cool about the Scribners is they were like a walking testimony on how to do things, and that it can be done. And I was always I was never like a lazy person, so I thought I could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they taught us how to discipline.
Yeah.
And it's all I knew is that I wanted to be a good steward with my children. That's all I cared about. I didn't care if all of you guys had the best toys. I didn't care if you guys had the cool shoes. I didn't care. And this is Santa Monica. Maybe some people did. I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure that you had fun,
Mm-hmm.
you were disciplined, and I obeyed the Bible and did my best, that you guys didn't go to hell when you grew up,
Yeah.
and that you didn't have the same life that
That you
Bill and
had.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so everybody at the police department was seeing that. Kimmy, when are you going to stop having kids?
Yeah, especially in California, it's like
Oh,
4 is
yeah.
a lot.
Oh, yeah. 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 It was really looked down upon, not by my friends.
Sure.
Nobody ever, but the policemen would tease me and mock me and stuff like that. But that was cool. That was funny.
Yeah.
But no, I just wanted to have children, and every time I was like, Billy, I want to have a baby. And Billy's like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked it. I liked having babies, and I enjoyed that. And then we went on to homeschool. But
Yeah, so okay, so let's start moving that way. So you start pastoring. You guys first go to Little Rock, California,
yeah,
for a couple years,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you come back and back to Santa Monica. Dad becomes an evangelist.
Yes.
I'm born, number 4, best child, middle child. Shout out all middle children. And then we moved to Utah, and Utah is a good portion of our lives. So
Yeah.
when you first started pastoring, how was that for you? And then going to Utah, how did maybe that change? Because you guys took over a church, but
Hmm.
pioneering, taking over, evangelism, you went through all 3 of those things within first 5 years.
Oh man, I mean I was rocking and rolling. I had sometimes I look back and I go, how did I do this?
Yeah.
I don't know who coined this phrase. I don't know if it was Hillary Clinton. I don't really care, but it's really true. Takes a village. It takes a lot of people to help you with your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so thankful for good friends. But when we were in Little Rock, I witnessed, and my midwife actually came to our church, and
Wow.
it started to grow. And then we went back, like you said, to Santa Monica. And then in 1997, we were sent out to, Kearns, Utah. That was a trip. I had no idea what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I
Yeah,
didn't,
you're moving from your home.
yeah, yeah,
California is all you've ever known.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
33 years of living in California,
Mm-hmm.
working for the police department. And when I was driving east on Pico, I remember the Holy Spirit saying, when I was leaving my retirement party and that cool party, the chief even came, really hearing the Holy Spirit say, this chapter of your life is closed.
Mm.
I'm moving you forward.
Mm.
And I remember almost feeling sad, but at the same time going, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You know? And so we landed in Utah. Didn't really know how to be a pastor's wife. I mean, but I just knew this. You kids were my priority. And Pastor Rob had suggested that we homeschool,
Yeah.
because we didn't really know how it would all work out in the public school, and we wanted to, be careful about the influence on our children. And we didn't, want the Mormon religion to affect you guys. So we did. A lot of people shelter their children from drugs and stuff. We were sheltering our kids from that religion,
Mm-hmm.
because it was so prevalent in the schools. I do
Yeah.
not know how it is now.
Yeah.
And so I did not know how to homeschool. So
Mm.
what I had to do was devour books on how to do that.
Yeah.
And I had already been looking into it in Santa Monica, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And so you're homeschooling all of us, you're pastoring. Man, that's a heavy load. And then we start a little school at
Yeah.
at the door
Yeah.
in Kearns, Utah. How did that come about?
Well, we had, gosh, we were growing so much at the church, and we had like, if we had 50 people on a Sunday morning, 60 were children.
Mm,
So, a buddy of mine, Debbie Richards, and I were talking about it. We were like, man, we really need to help all the homeschooling moms and figure this out. And so we did.
yeah,
And we bought the curriculum and
Christian Liberty.
Christian Liberty. We just made it basic because we didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah, yeah,
So we just got the curriculums and went to the church, and everybody came and brought their kids, and
yeah. Every morning.
every morning. You
Every
guys
morning we
loved
started
it.
at 8 or
I
7.
think so.
8.
8 after prayer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after prayer, we all stayed there, and we had little classes, little
Yeah.
rooms that we went to, and they
Yeah.
separated us by grades, and
Yeah.
we
We
had a
just did
great
it was
we had a
just
good
like
amount of people.
it was just like a co-op. It wasn't
Yeah.
really a school. It was a co-op. And basically I saw it as a ministry just to help mums with their children, making sure that they're learning and all that, because
Yeah.
that was really important to me.
Yeah, and we had a number of parents helping out. I remember
Oh,
Rainey, Debbie, Hugh,
yeah.
um,
Trish
Trish,
Dorsey,
yeah,
Melissa,
Melissa
yeah,
Reinhardt, yeah,
yeah, and Melissa Brown, when she come
yeah.
in the church,
So like you were
a lot
saying,
of
it's just
people.
a full-on village taking,
Yeah,
all these moms are stepping up, and
it was so cool.
and it was like a nice little, counter to the public school system. A
Yeah,
nice little, hey, we'll take care of it. We're going to raise our kids in the way they should go,
yeah,
and we're not going to be influenced. And we had a PE class, and we
yeah,
would do Richard Simmons,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
would go outside and play soccer and play
Oh, it was
handball,
so
and
fun.
we had such a great time.
And Melissa did Shakespeare plays with you all.
Yeah,
This was, you know what? You kids had fun.
yeah, it was
It
a great
was,
time.
school isn't always fun. And you guys had fun.
Hmm.
It meant a lot to me that the kids would have fun. And everybody was disciplined. So everybody behaved. Not that they were perfect. I don't mean
Sure,
that.
sure.
There were still the quarrels and the this and the that. But everybody had fun. Those were nice memories.
Yeah, absolutely. How long was the school taking place for?
I think we just did like a year and a half,
Yeah,
and then we went to Tucson.
yeah. So we go to Tucson, uh, but Utah. I mean, you could spend a number of things there. But so that was some of the good. What were some of the things that you had to overcome in your own life, as a pastor's wife, as a Christian, as a
Hmm.
mom of 7 kids at the time? By the time we left, you had all 7 of us in Utah. So what were some of the struggles that you were facing in Utah that God really had to help you through and help you overcome, that you had to go deeper in him, go
Yeah,
build your relationship with dad, and
yeah,
build friends? I mean, because you leave California, the only place you ever knew, to taking over a church of
yeah,
people in it,
yeah,
and your life it's like you're thrown into the fire.
yeah.
And so, were some of your struggles maybe in the early years or later years of living in Utah?
Well, it was in the beginning of Utah. You know what? I look back on those years, and
And the
oh,
only
go
reason
ahead.
why the only
No,
reason
no,
why I
you're
even
fine.
ask this is people might be like, why is he focusing on struggles? Well, it's because it's reality.
Yeah,
We all struggle. We all go through things, and
yeah,
nobody's life is perfect. No one has it all together, and there are things that we're going to struggle with, and that we can all relate in. But the hope is that there is hope.
yeah,
There is, people that can walk you through it, can totally relate to you and help you through it and help you guide along the way. And so, that's the only reason why I ask, what were some of the things that maybe you had to overcome. That way, someone maybe listening can be like, oh, okay, I can get through that.
yeah. You know what? I think my my biggest struggles were not understanding why people just wouldn't serve God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I when I got saved, I was very simple,
Hmm.
And is all I wanted was for people to serve God.
Mm-hmm.
Not be perfect, but sin would discourage me if people weren't going deeper, or so I would say it was discouragement for me, um if people weren't getting the victory or breakthrough, and you know I would be impatient at times. But man, I loved everybody so much.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about me being like annoyed or bothered. I
Sure.
just loved everybody. I really wanted them to get it, to get breakthrough, and marriages to get breakthrough, and
Yeah.
not be the same. And obviously I can't go into all the details of this stuff, but it was people are crazy.
Yeah, and we had some crazy people living with us. I remember in Utah we had a pretty good sized house, but um, I remember outside of our family there was like 7 other people living with us at once,
Yeah.
maybe 5, maybe 7 is too much. But I remember thinking back, and I think we had 5 people, not our family, living with us. So that
Yeah.
house was packed.
I loved
Yeah, I
it.
loved it too. I remember growing up, hanging out with
Yeah.
all the people,
Oh
Tylo,
man, Tylo was great.
Manny,
Nan, Crystal, Markel
Markel
lived
lived
with
with us.
us.
Yeah,
Steve Anderson. We
yeah.
had a blast, and
And it wasn't just like a stop, and it was like they lived with us.
yeah, they live with us, and of course, they're going to have all of their different, takes on it. Oh, they're strict, or they're this,
Sure.
but it was like it had to be more disciplined, because otherwise,
Chaos.
chaos. And
Discipleship living.
yeah, it was discipleship living. And I remember Jennifer Scribner said to me, Kim, I'd rather have 10 people live with me with a good attitude than one with a bad.
Mm.
And people just don't see their bad attitudes. They just don't see themselves. They just see you. If the husband and the wife, if you're saying, hey, can you not have a bad attitude? Can you just sweep? I'm not lazying around here
Yeah, yeah.
either. I'm doing
Yeah.
my part. It's not that big of a deal.
Mm.
you know and but anyway, I loved it. Connor and Jesse,
Yeah.
Veronica and Carl, so many cool people. I had
Yeah,
such a
that we
blast.
still have relationships
Yeah,
with.
and these people meant a lot to us. But when I said crazy people, I mean there are a lot of people that came in and left because they just didn't want to serve God.
Yeah.
You know, and we had some overdoses of heroin.
Yeah.
Billy and I were trying, man.
Yeah.
We went down to Salt Lake and um, dealt with the squatters. Took Steve would make soups, and we
Yeah.
would make
I remember going
soups.
there
Yeah,
during the winter and
yeah,
passing out soup.
yeah. And I loved that.
Yeah.
So anyway, the church really did begin to grow.
Yeah.
It really
And we
did.
did have crazy people living with us. We had like a guy who was like literally, what was he, a drug addict or selling drugs from our
Well, actually, he was a murderer.
murderer. That's what it was. That's even worse.
Well, he got saved.
He got saved. Yeah. So
He got saved in prison, but it was a mutual combat over drugs.
yeah.
And so they were beating each other up, and the one guy died.
Yeah.
So the guy that ended up living with us,
Yeah.
he really didn't mean to kill him.
Sure.
He was under the influence of
You
drugs.
just love putting all your kids in harm's way. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. Sacrifice it. No, of course. No, I mean that.
We locked the doors.
Yeah,
We locked the doors. Your dad would get up every couple hours and check and make sure everything was intact.
Was good, yeah.
But this guy was a really good guy. He really was. And
yeah.
so,
but that shows the heart of that shows where you and Pastor Bill's heart is, in that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you've done. We are, to help the broken and the needy.
Yeah.
The poor and the widow. That was where you all were and still are. And so that's just a powerful testament. And it's like you have these funny and crazy stories along the way, but the bottom line is that no one else that I know besides the Scribners and maybe a couple people I could probably think of that have opened up their house to so many people at once. And it doesn't matter. I'm not saying people I know wouldn't,
Oh,
but
sure.
the reality is that we did it.
Yeah.
You and Pastor Bill did it. Pastor Rob and Miss Jen have done it, and other people in Santa Monica have done it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's a true testament to just your guys' heart.
Thank you. Well, it's so funny is like we never like had a resume
No,
of, okay, you,
check your
you
credit
did
score.
this, you did. No, it was like if you were in the church 3 months and you were just showing fruit of the Holy Spirit, you were changing, you were growing. Obviously, you weren't perfect, but you were changing, growing, and you loved the Lord. And we welcomed that. We wanted to see people grow because I knew my life was bad,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously wasn't the only one, and I needed to learn how to be a Christian and was still learning how to be a Christian. So other people needed to learn too,
Yeah.
and that's why we did it. And that's what Pastor Rob would encourage us. He never said, you need to have people live with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would just say, people need to learn. People don't know how to be dads. People don't know how to be Christian. People don't know how to be married.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill and I really loved each other. And we loved you kids. And so that's why we wanted people to live with us. We did not do everything right. And I'm sure we were impatient and did things wrong, but we were kind of all learning together anyway. It wasn't like I was saved, 25 years. I
Yeah.
got saved in 87, and in 97,
Yeah,
we were
you're
in
there.
Utah.
You're there.
So that's just
It's
10
about,
years.
35, you're having, people living with you in your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Whatever, 37, and
Yeah.
you're having most people at the age of 37, they're still, working on their family, but now you have your family and other people's family living in
Yeah.
the same home as you.
Yeah.
No, the only thing you guys did wrong was not letting me eat McDonald's whenever I wanted. Other than that, no. No, but of course, I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
those things. You're growing, and you're
Yeah.
helping other people
Definitely.
grow, and you're just having a good time
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah.
And that's
Me and Debbie Richards had so much fun,
yeah,
and Jesse and Veronica, and then we would work out
Melissa.
every morning. Melissa, yeah, we had so much fun. And any names I'm not mentioning, we just had so many people. Mary,
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
had a
Mary. Oh
blast.
yeah. And so leaving there, that was so you go there cold turkey. 8 years, you have
Yeah.
yes, ups and downs, but great friendships that you still hold to this day.
Yes.
At the end of that 8 years, how was that when you guys left?
Well, I just my whole thing was I just felt like who came in next needed to take it to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe we were too much friends, and I don't know, but that the next pastor coming in would do a better job, if you will. And that's just how I felt. I mean, Billy did a great job. I'm not saying woe is me. I'm just saying, it's just like you take it to a place and then somebody
just
else.
keep building.
Yeah,
Building
yeah,
blocks,
that's all.
scaffolding. Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh came in, and Kathy. We were
Yeah.
so excited
Yeah, I
about them.
love them.
I know, me too. I love them. And I was just thrilled because Josh is a great preacher, and Kathy is just so lovely and friendly and wonderful. So, but when Pastor Warner had asked us to come to his church and do family ministries, it was a real opportunity for us to continue to grow into his ministry. And do something different. It was really cool. Now, I do want to say this. Bill and I devoured a lot of books on parenting and marriage. And some of the reason why is because we didn't know. Pastor Rob taught us a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. But when we went to Utah, guess what? Pastor Rob's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And there were times I would write him crying, Pastor Rob, what do I do? And then I'm like, man, I just really got to buck up here and stop it.
Yeah.
And so I started to read.
Mm-hmm.
Read Bradley's books,
I was
Child
about to say
Training.
him.
Yeah,
Bradley.
I love him. He's such a great author. And so I just had to learn how to train my children in the ways of the Lord, and how to be married, like I said, and grow in that. And it was fun because we would read books together, me and the ladies. We would laugh.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so then when I went to Tucson, I was like, okay, now I get to implement it.
Yeah.
I get to teach others. And I did. I had a parenting class there. And eventually I had an evening class for the children. I would have up to 45 kids as little shepherds. Remember?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And then we did new believers class. We did marriage classes. So we were very busy.
Yeah.
We really were. And then eventually Billy did follow up.
Yeah.
And, I'm like.
Did you feel an added pressure when you came in to focus on families, to like an added pressure of, I hope my kids stay saved during this time?
Yeah,
when like the spotlight is on family, right? And your family, and of course of course we're not perfect, the 7 of us, but did you feel like an added pressure of like, I have so many kids, and this is our job, to help other people with parenting?
Yeah. You know what? Again, I just wanted everybody to get it.
Yeah.
That's it. I just cared about people getting it. And I'm super simple. I always felt like if I did my best, God would do the rest. And I had, I never even thought about you guys backsliding. Never even worried about that. We didn't expect you guys to be perfect. We expected you to fail.
Yeah. And fail in the home.
Fail in the home, which was a better place.
Yeah.
We expected things not to go well for you all. So I think we just dealt with that when that came. But you know what? Another cool thing that happened to me in the lighthouse that just came into my mind. I had, I do not know what Pastor Rob preached, but I went to the altar at the end, and this was before all my children were born. I think I only had 2 at the time. And I went to the altar because basically the altar call was surrender your children. Okay? Surrender them to the Lord completely. And I went to the altar, and God started speaking to me about, I want your children, and I want your future children. And I remember, this is going to sound kind of heavy maybe, weeping like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean you want my children? Does that mean they're going to die? What do you mean? I just didn't understand. I was still a new convert.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, Lord, I lay my children down at this altar. They are yours. They are not mine. I give them back to you, and you do with them what you choose to do. Just help me steward them, and Billy, of course, too. And now the cool thing about Bill is he had Pastor Rob and Jen teach him because he lived in their home. But I really knew nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so Pastor Rob taught me a lot, but I had a long ways to go. But I remember that. So I've always carried that. In Utah, you belong to God. And I know that sounds like, oh, yeah, right. Of course he does. But no, I really believe that.
Yeah.
You belong to God. You are not mine. I am to steward you according to the word. And God would take care of you. And honestly, I lived that way. And so even in Tucson, and it's so simple, it's almost like, well, yeah, everybody does that. I do not know if they do or not. I am not here to analyze people's parenting,
Yeah.
but that's what we did.
Yeah. So is that when in regards to parenting, is that your recommendation as far as, you know, if someone maybe doesn't know, they maybe they know to spank because the Bible does deal with that, but the rod of correction. But is your advice to like just devour books, just devour it, devour
Devour.
it?
Yeah. Really read. I
Mm-hmm.
was a ferocious reader at one time. I mean, I was reading, I was walking, reading,
Mm-hmm.
okay, through the house. And, when I had the twins, I mean, Shiggy was such a blessing for me. And of course, Alyssa too. Adam was such a blessing. So they helped me. But I needed to grow in a lot of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I also needed to work out. I needed energy. I needed stamina in my brain. And it was a lot. And so
Yeah.
I needed to read. Because I felt so inadequate. And so it was, let's put it like this, it's really a miracle. It's a miracle I had 7 children.
Mm.
It really is. And when I had twins, I just felt so blessed.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy, but at the same time, I didn't think about it being hard.
Yeah.
I really just took one day at a time, like Jesus said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got the foolishness out.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get mad either.
Mm-hmm.
That helps when you do not get angry at your kids. That helps a lot. And even when like you would fight me, even if I seem mad, I really wasn't. I was
Yeah,
just
you're
trying
just
to
trying to,
control,
yeah.
make sure I didn't accidentally spank you anywhere else.
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so you're in your family ministry. You're doing well in Tucson. You've created a life there. We're all going to high school. I graduated high school from there. Alyssa graduated from high school in Tucson. And then Pastor Bill says, "Hey, I want to go to West Virginia." And pack up and move 2,000 miles away. Um, and the last 7 years could be its own episode as well. But I guess my same question, and I would like to just maybe have you elaborate a little bit more, is one of the struggles that hit you almost immediately was your hip.
yeah,
Your hip went out,
yeah.
and what happened?
Well, actually, what happened was I had it checked before we left,
Mm-hmm.
and the surgeon in Tucson said, "Hey, you're clear. You're good. You're still got so much flexibility. I think you'll be fine." But the PA was like, "You're not fine."
Mm-hmm.
And so she was kind of contradicting the surgeon. And I paid attention to her because she was nervous telling me.
Mm-hmm.
She was looking at the x-ray too. But, for me, as all I know is I was ready for an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I like thinking about the unknown and
Yeah.
what is in store for the future. Like, I don't feel old. I don't feel like, oh man, I can't do anything. I think working out helped a lot of prayer, a lot of
Yeah.
reading, all that stuff, and a good marriage.
Yeah,
And
because you guys pioneered moving to West Virginia at the age of 50.
at 50 years
At the
old,
age
we
of 50, you
pioneered.
guys drove across country, 2 U-Hauls with all of your kids, everyone except for Adam, who's pastoring in Utah,
Yeah,
or else he would have came with us.
yeah,
But some other people from Tucson helped us. Grandpa David, Momo,
yeah. A lot
helped
of
us
people
move.
helped
A
us,
lot of
yeah.
people helped us move. But
Mackenzie.
again, at the age of 50, you know, you're not as young as you once were.
No.
Moving to
Oh,
Utah
no,
at
I
the age
went
of
into
33,
menopause.
yeah. And so, like, the only reason why I bring up the physical
Yeah,
aspect is because you have your spiritual um, struggles, but also now you're dealing with
physical.
physical as well. So
Yeah, never really did before.
yeah, so you get here after getting checked in Tucson, and when did you start? Like, oh my gosh, like my hip is
That winter.
yeah.
That winter, it was horrible. It was like my hip collapsed. That's how
Mm,
I try and explain it to people. And it turned out I went into menopause. And what happens is when you into menopause, your estrogen levels uh, decrease. So your joints and your ligaments are affected because
Mm.
estrogen is very important for women. And so it decreased. And it turns out what had happened was when I was born, I was breech.
Mm.
So when I was born, I should have been put into a brace, and I was not.
Mm-hmm.
So all those years, my pelvic was off, and that explains the 4 C-sections that I had. And so when I went into menopause and everything changed for me physically, that's when it all went bad. And so I said to Billy, I was like, Billy, I didn't come here, I'm just saying, to be crippled.
Mm-hmm.
I came here to start a church. I'm getting it replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And we prayed and we prayed and we prayed. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not wasting time. I'm getting my hip replaced, and I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be fine. And sure enough, 6 weeks later, thanks to people like Josh Scribner, who was like my personal trainer through my
Mm-hmm.
40s and my 30s, and telling me about squats and blah 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 blah, I bounced back, and all of my physical therapists were like, "Man, we haven't met anybody like you."
Yeah.
And so, of course, you give all the glory to God, but I think too here in West Virginia, people aren't as healthy
Uh-huh.
physically as well, and
Oh,
so
that's not even being rude. That's just like statistical speaking. I mean, we're
yeah,
the second.
yeah,
Pray for us if you listening. Just pray that people catch a vision, because that's what it is.
yeah,
It's a revelation of health and fitness
yes,
and
it really
well-being.
is, yeah,
But there was a time, even before you got, so you recovered tremendously and very quickly. But
yeah.
before that, you couldn't even walk. You couldn't
Oh yeah,
even walk up the
I was
stairs.
like, I
Yeah.
was like crippled. My hip was bone on bone,
Mm.
and but my other side, my left side, was completely perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they knew it was a birth defect,
Mm-hmm.
birthing
Yeah.
effect. Being born breech
Yeah.
and not being put in that brace.
Yeah.
And I was a 9-pound baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I was a firstborn. So all that played into, how it happened.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't know. Except for when I was a kid, I felt like I was an overweight kid. After I had been molested, I started gaining a lot of weight. But I always, when I would run, I would be like, man, I feel like a tank. And
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed it was because I was overweight, but it's because my hips were off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people explained that to me later on. Of course, I had no clue. I had no dad. My mom was working, so nobody really guided me in that. So anyway,
Yeah. So your hip is just hitting you, and then pioneering has its own struggles. What
oh
were
yeah.
you doubting? Like, man, what should we have come here? Was
Oh,
this?
at first, yeah, I was. I was like, Lord, what have I done?
Yeah.
What have I done? Have I heard incorrectly? And then I thought to myself, devil, you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to win. And that's why I was like, Billy, I'm just going to get it replaced.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a martyr here. I didn't come here to be a martyr.
Yeah.
I came here to pioneer church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a physical martyr, I mean.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
And people were like hesitant about me doing it. I was like, I'm doing it. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I am.
Yeah. You're fine. You work out.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. Is that, post surgery, you continue to take care of your body.
Yeah.
And that's what's key. Um, continuing in recovery. Always.
Yeah.
You're always preventative.
Yeah.
Always preventative stuff. And, stretching, working out, eating healthy is so
Important.
crucial,
Yeah.
so important.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could pick your brain about just health and different dynamics of that, because, you're tremendously knowledgeable in that area as well. But so that was one of the things that really hit you hard as far as
Yes.
physically, mentally challenging.
Very much.
But what was something that came out of that? What were some good stuff that since we've been here? We probably should wrap it up a little bit, because I want to
Sure.
ask you some questions as well that came in from Instagram. But some good stuff that's come out of West Virginia since we've been here. I know that might be a loaded question because there's so much, because we've talked about it.
Yeah.
And I can say so much, but
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So much blessing has happened here in West Virginia, financially, materially. I mean, our building is beautiful. So much blessing. When I came here, people told me, oh, yeah, there's so many poor people there, and that's okay. That never intimidated me. You're going to be poor too. And, all this stuff.
Yeah,
And
negativity.
a lot, yeah, because I mean, if you read about West Virginia,
Yeah.
we're number one in diabetes, number one in heart disease, number one in poverty, number
Yeah.
one in drugs, number one in this. It's like, no, I'm done with that. And it's almost like because I made that decision, and of course your dad did, and all of you did. God said, you know what? I'm going to bless you, and you're going to be a testament of blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not about bragging. That is honest to God blessing. And when we came here, immediately the church began to grow.
Yeah.
It is hard to keep people here because of jobs.
Yeah.
So a lot of people leave, but I'm just saying, people started coming into the church. We were outreaching. We were doing what we do. We outreach. We do.
Pick up people.
Yeah, pick up people, witness, pray, all those things. And God just started building the church.
Yeah.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had just our family.
No?
Looking back over the last 7 years, we've never had a service where it was just our family.
Yeah.
We've always had at least one person, whether I was Steven or Miss Debbie or Tommy.
Yeah.
We've always had
Katie,
someone outside of our family being in our service.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. And so, I mean, the spiritual part, I knew I needed to grow. And so I wasn't always Mrs. Perfect, and menopause wasn't easy. But I definitely had to grow in just patience, grace, all those things. I think mostly because of the physical part, and then the schools are not great here.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy about that. And so I had to be patient with that. But so we definitely had our obstacles.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot
So
of
much
good.
Yeah,
I
so much good.
know. I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
I know, it's so good.
So good. And I'll ask you one other question, but I want to get to these ones
Okay,
real
sure,
quick.
sure.
So Miss Sharon,
Uh-huh.
she asks, who were your marriage and parenting mentors? Which I'm sure you kind of already answered, but
Yeah. Pastor Rob Scribner
Okay.
and Jennifer. Reb Bradley and Beverly. Richard Fugate wrote a book. I took a lot from his stuff. It really helped me, actually, in discipline.
yeah,
They were my main ones. Actually, Sharon, she's cool people. Loved
Oh,
her
yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah.
especially about
Yeah, she's
homeschooling.
great.
Yeah. So, it takes a lot of people, but those are my main ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great, and it's cool too that you still have your mentors in your life.
Yeah.
And you still consider them mentors. They're
Yeah.
not people that I'm the mentor now, or I'm the Jedi Master now. It's no, we all have pastors. We all
Oh,
have
yeah.
people that we need to call and talk to and grow from and ask questions to, which is just so important in our lives.
Absolutely. Another couple that meant a lot to me, but more so as mentors, not as parenting, but just how to be Christians, was Pam and Harrison Summer. They were my pastors for a good solid 10 years,
Mhm.
and super blessing. I mean, she really taught me how to be a Christian, and really spoke humbly with me.
Mhm.
If it wasn't about my pride or my rebellion and how to
Mhm.
respond as a Christian. And so they're definite mentors too, but a little bit different, more of my character.
Yeah.
So.
Love that. All right. We might have already answered this one as well, but Aldine asks, any advice on raising teenagers? Also, how did you pray for your teenagers? How did you pray for your teenagers?
You know what? Okay. Advice on teenagers is don't take it personal. When you talk to your teenager and they, tell you something bad about you, or they tell you how much they hate it that we didn't have a TV, or they hate it that, they can't go party or they can't go hang out with bad kids. You got to keep your head on and be really sober minded about that, because this isn't about you as a parent. Even though it is, it isn't. And so you have to be really patient and listen to your teenagers. Really listen. And I'm not saying Aldine doesn't, or because Aldine's awesome. Uh, she's my buddy too.
Of course,
I mean, it's like, so I'm not saying that anybody
No,
doesn't
you're speaking
do.
in general. This is a general question.
General, yeah. I think it's really important that we listen and not get angry and are careful with what we say. And also that when we have some wisdom, I think it's really important that when you are moving in wisdom, that going into the prayer part, that the anointing happens. You just don't give pat answers because I said. No, you really want to give wisdom on why the Bible is this way, the protection, and also being transparent. My life sucked before I got saved. You don't want to be a drunk. You don't want to go in that direction. It's no good. So being real, honest, taking that time, being patient with your kids is so imperative. Being patient and really listening, I think, means a lot to your children.
Yeah. Monique asks, how did she juggle responsibilities of being a mother of 7 and responsibilities of pioneering churches with her husband? We might have touched on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think it was just on a daily basis. You just do your best.
Day to day.
Don't try and be perfect like I never dusted.
Yeah.
I never dusted.
Yeah, you made us dust.
Actually, I paid people to dust. I would have somebody come in. Sometimes you guys hated dusting, so we just stopped dusting. And it was pretty rough because we all had allergies, so we had to figure something out.
Yeah.
But some things I just didn't deal with. I just didn't. The responsibility, like I didn't have a perfect house. We just maintenanced it at night, cleaned up the toys.
Yeah.
Made your beds so that you didn't get spiders in them.
Yeah.
That's about it. We just, every once in a while, Veronica would come over and we would clean out your Legos and separate them. But
yeah, having help, having friends, partnering with people.
Was huge.
Yeah. All right. Connor asks, what were some of the challenges in raising me?
Connor Trivers?
No, different Connor. No.
Oh, raising you.
Raising me.
Oh, the challenges? Oh, man. Aaron doesn't talk a lot. So you had to go deeper into his heart to figure out what's going on. I think Aaron was just a normal kid that...
Rambunctious.
You were all boy. You didn't want to do it. You didn't want to obey. I mean, to me, that seemed normal.
Yeah.
You got a word when you were dedicated that you were going to be a difficult one for me.
Yeah.
And it was very true. You were perfect up until like 3 years old because I had you on a sleepy schedule.
Yeah.
And then it was all of a sudden you decided that you wanted to do everything but what we wanted you to do.
Of course.
Yeah, you were a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were so cute.
And they said I got spanked more than the 3 previous kids combined.
Oh, I don't know about that. I know.
That's a running joke. I don't know if it's true. I deny it, but I thought I'd let you guys.
Oh, Alyssa got a lot of spanks.
Yeah, that's right. Alyssa did get a lot of spanks.
Yeah. Adam, he figured things out. He's a firstborn.
Yeah.
He figured it out. Man, these two work together. I don't want to do this no more. So he figured it out. And Shiggy, She figured it out.
Yeah,
Shiggy's the
two
one who,
firstborns. Yeah.
yeah, she's the one that didn't get a lot of spanks, you know.
She's sneaky.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my final question that Shiggy actually asked: who is your favorite child?
Oh
Of
my.
course, Shiggy would try and do that. Selfish, honestly.
Oh man, I don't have any
That's right.
faves.
Besides me.
I can't. Oh man, each one of you are so amazing. I always tell people I have 7 bests.
Mm.
Um, you 7 are the best people on, some of the 7 of the best people in the whole world.
Mm.
I'm so proud of you all. Each one of you is so unique, and I love. There's a favorite thing about each one of you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So to say who's my favorite, that's impossible.
No, it's not. She'll
But
tell me when the camera's off.
but no, what I was going to say is I think what the best thing about all of you is that you're saved.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire and respect you all so much because you guys have been determined to serve God, even and come to church.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go to church.
Yeah.
All the services.
Yeah.
You're like old school and you're super young.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could just add to that, one of the things as far as parenting is concerned, just encourage your kids. My mom's a great encourager. And so being able to encourage, being able to be there, open ears, and be able to maybe just say you don't know sometimes, and, or that you are sorry for things, or, just being humble, walking in
Definitely.
humility,
Definitely.
is so key, is so crucial to being a parent, especially if you're dealing with your first child, then, of course you're not going to know everything, and that's okay. That's
Yeah,
that's
it's
okay. You're not a bad
okay.
mom. You're not a bad dad
No.
for struggling, for, wanting to be better and different things like that. And so, but I think one of the key things is, being an encourager, and that's something that you've been in my life. Last thing, and we'll wrap it up. What are some things that you're looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the church growing.
Mm,
I am still gun ho in that. It's
yeah,
growing. COVID took a hit, but
yeah,
whatever, we're growing. I'm encouraged about helping people. Um, Future marriages, more grandchildren, but
mm,
I'm not one of those nanas that are like you got to have kids. If you do, you do. I
yeah,
would love that. I
yeah,
think all of you love babies.
yeah,
So, but just the future, the good.
yeah,
I know God's going to do a lot.
yeah. I agree. I think he's going to do a lot, and I'm looking forward to it as well. Well, I appreciate everyone. Thank you, Mama. I
Sure.
appreciate you. Thank you for coming on again. And if you guys have any questions for her, feel free to shoot a DM to my Instagram or to my email. My email is mtappodcast@gmail, and then my Instagram handle is the same, mtappodcast. And so you guys are more than welcome to shoot any questions that you have, or ask for those books that she recommended, or anything like that. So I appreciate you all. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next week.
Bye.